Pushback from the Chinese ambassador to the United States on some comments you made recently. I believe you suggested, at least, that the virus could have come from China's biological warfare program. The ambassador from China pushing back pretty strenuously against that. What do you think about his comments on this matter?
Well, first off, I would note that he didn't deny that China has been deceitful about the origins of this virus. There were reports in December and January that it started in a food market in Wuhan. We now know, based on conclusive evidence, that it did not start in that market. It went into the market, it came out of it. I don't know where it began. I do know that we need to get to the bottom of it, and we do need to ask the questions about the super laboratory that is in Wuhan. There are too many unanswered questions, and China has been too deceitful and too incompetent in managing this for us to just take the word of the Chinese Communist Party.
The USA will be exterminated unless appropriate action is taken right now. Ladies and gentlemen, we're going to show you the latest footage from Wuhan, and it just keeps getting worse as far as we can tell. Check out the middle video here. Everything has been barricaded shut. Everything. Look at all of the bodies, the people, in the hospitals out there. This is a devastating bioweapon that has been unleashed and has spread around the world. They're saying 400 cities got dosed at the height of this Fukushima. And instead of a nuclear reactor melting down, what we have is the Wuhan Institute of Virology that melted down, ladies and gentlemen. And it unleashed a super virus into the hospital 300 meters away, and the seafood market. So they actually have two major weapons facilities in Wuhan. There's a reason why this happened in Wuhan, and we're just starting to get the full scope of the situation right now. But it's beyond what you can imagine. And unless they put together a Manhattan Project right now with all of the leading scientists, virologists, you name it, on this crisis, no one is going to survive. And it's much worse than they've been, telling you. And we're going to get into why that is. This virus will relapse. This virus never goes away, like herpes, and people can get reinfected by it because it's been engineered to be like AIDS. So this is, an unprecedented crisis in world history. And I'm sure most people, in the higher ups knew that this was a possibility. But they always thought that they would have some kind of forewarning that, if something like this were to escape a lab, they would know. And they would have weeks to, prepare. But when everybody found out what happened, at the height of the epidemic, planes had already been flying around the world for, over a week, 10 days, with conservative estimates all the way since the beginning of January. We're now learning that the authorities were made aware at the beginning of January in China. And so they started preparing to lock everything down for the 23rd. So they had 2 weeks where they could have told the world and perhaps, averted a major catastrophe, which they didn't. And that's going to come back into the conversation. But right now we've got numerous publications reporting that this thing escaped the lab in Wuhan. There was a major publication cited by an accredited Chinese research university, and they point the finger strictly at these two labs in Wuhan. And so now the story is beginning to change. Ladies and gentlemen, it's no longer the seafood market. This is a bioweapon that has escaped the lab. It's made to destroy the USA. That was the purpose of this weapon when they designed it. And it might have been the purpose of this weapon when they released it. And that's what everybody really needs to understand. Normal containment will not work. Waiting for the first cases to go to the hospital will not work. They have to put in place basically quarantine measures to a certain extent right now. They got to stop interstate traffic. They got to, lock down the big cities that had any sort of traffic coming in from China. And this isn't a joke. And they need to, set up a Manhattan Project right now with all of the leading scientists working on a cure, working on blockers, working on ways to mitigate, slow down this disease, something like iodine pills that they can distribute to everyone. We're recommending everybody prepare for the China syndrome because it's coming. Everybody's now saying it's coming. It took 2 months for China to go from basically 0 cases to full meltdown. And in the USA right now, we're on week 4 or 5, somewhere around there. So we got about 2-3 weeks to go, in theory, before it totally melts down. So instead of trying to catch up to this thing like they're doing, we should be way in front of this thing right now. And of course, they're trying to set up quarantine camps at the airports, and that's, that doesn't look too good, because they're just going to start going, building to building, hauling people off into these quarantine camps to die. And what we're finding out is that they just can't stop it. No matter what they do, they can't stop the spread of this virus. It just continues. And we're going to get into why this is happening. We're going to get into what you should be preparing for and the like. But, basically you should be preparing for the last stand as a possibility, that you're going to have people come into your neighborhood trying to take you to a quarantine camp to die. And if you don't do it, they're basically going to take you out. So you now have to prepare for the last stand. And it's going to come down in cycles. At first they're going to lock down a city, then they're going to take one person from a building, and then they're going to come back to that building and say, everybody's contaminated, come with us. We've seen the videos. This is how this is going to operate. Why? Because this thing hibernates, more than likely, like the herpes, and comes back even if you get cured at the hospital. And it's just like an unceasing tidal wave. And so this is meant to destroy America. That's the purpose of this virus. It's been unleashed. It was supposed to be a dead man switch. And why it was unleashed, that's another question. And we can entertain some of those possibilities in a few minutes. We want to say hi to everyone out there in the audience. We're broadcasting live on the ScrewTube. How's everybody doing? We got another real interesting clip that we want to play. Stay tuned here. Don't go anywhere, because this is
know about the
pushback
where this
from
virus
the
came
Chinese
from.
ambassador.
What do you think? I know it's a probability. I don't even know if the Chinese know. I don't know if they'd admit it. Was it from one of these wet markets, or is there a chance that you see the little undercurrent that there's a P4 lab where work is done on these types of things, and it may have been made by man in some type of bioweapons research? Do you know for a fact it was naturally occurring from a wet market?
We need to be very careful not to engage in speculation here until we have data and evidence. We need transparent access to all first-generation genetic sequencing, isolates. We need to get on the ground, and we've got to do what we always do, work shoulder to shoulder with the Chinese scientific experts to just look at raw data and solve these questions.
In your opinion, do you think it was naturally occurring from a wet market?
I don't make it my business to speculate without science and evidence.
And the intelligence agencies aren't telling you anything else?
I don't make it my business to talk about my discussions with the intelligence community either.
If they were really sure, they would just say so. And the fact that they're skirting around the question now that the reports have all come out, it came out of the lab. Now look at their attitudes. See how the story is changing? It's only going to get much worse. And we've been so far ahead of this story. If you've been watching this since day one, you know how far ahead we are in this story. And it's only prudent to acknowledge at this stage that if this bioweapon was released from a lab, it was meant, to target their arch enemy, which is us. This weapon was made for us. And, they just let the planes come in and did nothing about it. And even after, the situation became rather clear, they still, let planes come in. And they're still not warning the public, honestly, about the situation, even though it was pretty obvious day one that this thing had escaped from a lab. The way they shut down the country and everything that they were doing, this wasn't just like the flu. They were rounding people up. And so people need to understand that we're not dealing with a regular virus. We're dealing with something that's like a doomsday virus, like the White Rabbit in Mission Impossible. That's what we're dealing with right now. So people really need to start acting accordingly. And, for the time being, there isn't a whole lot that you can do other than prepare, stock up. In theory, you're going to want grains, sugar, primary, kind of raw goods all, for at least 6 months. You're going to want to, stock up as much as you can on everything you can, guns, ammo, liquor, you name it, everything, because this isn't going away at all, ever. This is going to stay around forever, pretty much. And, then comes the vaccine, in a year or two. But this is going to come back like the seasonal flu, and they're going to come to the conclusion rather quickly, like the Chinese. Unless we exterminate everyone that's, linked to this, it's never going to go away. And right now we got some bad news from Hawaii. They learned that a week ago, a couple had traveled through there, stayed at a busy resort, went everywhere, conferences, you name it, and then came back to Japan and tested positive. So they're looking for, hundreds, if not thousands of people. It's past containment. This thing is going to hit. It's just a matter of time. It's a ticking time bomb. It's how it works. It's built into the program. And so, by the time you start seeing cases show up at the hospital, it's too late. It's spread it's spread so far beyond imagination that you pretty much have to prepare, brace yourselves. Pay attention to the middle video here. Everything is locked down. Everything is barricaded. People are just being forced to stay, indoors to starve. So if you don't have, what it takes to survive here, you're not probably going to survive. And so you need to find an HQ somewhere, like a little house on the prairie, as far away from the city as you can. You need to stock up, and you better hurry, because the clock is ticking. You don't have a day to waste. Quit your fucking job if you have to, survive out there. And as far as, the government response, unless they start, a Manhattan Project right now, you would imagine that this has already begun behind the scenes, that everybody has been, basically conferenced into, some kind of network. But we'd like to see it publicly, and we'd like to see, things happen publicly, while respecting, our freedoms and our rights as citizens. What we expect to happen, and you need to pay attention here, what we expect to happen is the exact same thing that we're seeing in China. This is part of the New World Order, Agenda 21, Georgia Guidestones, the Deagle.com report. Remember that? That's what we're looking at here. And so for people to, kind of underestimate or whatever this issue, you're setting yourself up big time. This is basically the leading, headlines now in the press. Did coronavirus originate from a lab? Scientists believe killer disease. Scientists with all the gear, geneticists, microbiologists, etc. Scientists believe killer disease may have begun in research facility 300 yards away from the Wuhan wet fish market. It just so happens there's a huge government lab 3 football fields away from this fish market that you all heard about. And if you listen to, we're going to continue reading this. Beijing sponsored South China University of Technology concludes that the killer coronavirus probably originated from a laboratory in Wuhan. There's a reason why it happened in Wuhan. It's like Fukushima. It points to research on bats, and we covered this. Check out our video archives for a very detailed report on the smoking gun. And of course, you thought the locusts were just in Africa. This doesn't look like Africa. They're in China right now. They got the biblical plagues going on. Now, a couple of weeks before all this happened, they were going around the news saying how they were going to ban, the Bible. They were going to rewrite the Bible, in fact, and pretty much ban Christianity. And all the Christians around the world were just shaking their heads, going, "Wow, just wait for it. Watch out." And here it is, ladies and gentlemen. And so collectively, we should be screaming, "Let our people go." And when this rocks Sodom and Gomorrah, because it will, every big city is just going to get, pretty much exterminated. And, when that's all said and done, it's going to be time for Christians to, to basically stand up together collectively and take their country back. Otherwise, this is going to happen again. You know, in California, you know, they tried to ban the Bible too. And, you know, they're doing, you know, all sorts of things that they shouldn't be doing out there, all sorts of abominations, Sodom and Gomorrah, you know, to the extreme. And so you bet they're going to get nailed, you know, and it's going to be an example to the world. And I think everybody needs to understand why this is happening. And so there you go. Now, getting back to what you can do to prepare, ladies and gentlemen, guns and ammo. All sorts of food, everything you can get. Stock up the freezer, get all the dried, you know, powdered things you can get, rice, grains, potatoes, you know, get things to plant a garden, because by the time this is all over, it's going to look like I Am Legend. Start networking out there. Start, you know, finding people that are like-minded. You need to exercise your Second Amendment right. You have a right to a militia. Go get your guns, go find Christians, and be on patrol as soon as, you know, they start trying to round people up. Because the New World Orders are just going to show up. It's going to be libtards in their white spacesuits showing up saying, you got to come with us. Oh, yeah? Oh, yeah, really? We got to come with you? Guess what? No. And you know what? You better set up choke points. You better set up ambushes. You better get radio scramblers. You better get the works. And as soon as they fall into your honey trap, as soon as they fall into your fly trap, scrambler on and open fire. And that's it. And if we collectively, you know, respond in that manner as an immunity response, the goons will vanish quickly. And then we can go on the hunt. Everybody's going to be a hunter out there. And you better prepare. We have an advantage right now because we can see this thing coming. It's like, you know, the show Fringe. I'm not sure how many people remember the series Fringe, and they had like this window to look into the parallel universe. We can see what's happening in the parallel universe right now. We know it's coming here, that this is going to be our world in about 2 or 3 weeks. Prepare out there. Like and share. Show these videos to your neighbors, to your friends, to your trusted colleagues, right? Know the difference between, you know, a real person and a Judas in disguise. Know the 10 Commandments by heart. Know the people that are, you know, basically cult members in disguise. Tell the difference. And that's the only people you can trust out there. Otherwise, just trust yourselves, because you really can't trust anybody. Most people are cult members these days. We're gonna play this clip again if we can.
Pushback from the Chinese ambassador to the United States on some comments you made recently. I believe you suggested, at least, that the virus could have come from China's biological warfare program. The ambassador from China pushing back pretty strenuously against that. What do you think about his comments on this matter?
Well, first off, I would note that he didn't deny that China has been deceitful about the origins of this virus. There were reports in December and January that it started in a food market in Wuhan. We now know, based on conclusive evidence, that it did not start in that market. It went into the market, it came out of it. I don't know where it began. I do know that we need to get to the bottom of it, and we do need to ask the questions about the super laboratory that is in Wuhan. There are too many unanswered questions, and China has been too deceitful and too incompetent in managing this for us to just take the word of the Chinese Communist Party.
And they've been extremely deceitful since the beginning. You can only, you know, kind of consider the possibility here that this was some kind of kamikaze attack, and that, you know, as soon as the dust settles, they're going to come in with their, you know, nuclear bombers or whatever and the like. And, you know, under the confusion of the full pandemic, here comes, you know, more attacks and the like. So it's time to go to DEFCON 1. First of all, shields up out there at the Pentagon and the like. Shields up, DEFCON 1 for starters. You know, then we need a Manhattan Project, all the top virologists, all the professors at the major universities, and, you know, perhaps do a secondary Manhattan Project with all the professors at state universities, because they got some talent too. And we need to get all these people together to think about what we can do. And we better start deploying, you know, all the things that we got out there. Start sending the subs, you know, into the deep. And as far as, you know, what they're going to say about, you know, the cause or what they tried to do and the like, you know, I think people should think about, you know, what's happened so far with this new Cold War, as well as, you know, the massive recalls of medications from China that have been, you know, basically doused with toxic waste. And they were finding, you know, NDMA, not MDMA, but N, like no, NDMA, in, like, you know, antacids and all sorts of things. And it looks like they've been sending us, contaminated medicines and other little things, the fentanyl. They've been trying to destroy this country for quite some time, take it over. They've been buying everything, ports and the like. There's no telling what they've let in through the ports that they own. But now it's time to take a proper stance here. We got to cut them out of the loop. And that's going to be a major issue because we rely on them for all sorts of industrial things. And we're not even equipped for that. We don't have the factories for that. We don't have the room or the capacity for that. So all of a sudden, it's going to be real difficult. We can't really build all this new infrastructure because everybody's got to hunker down, and it's going to be a permanent thing. But if we want to survive right now, they basically have to start quarantining all of the big cities, and not in a major way, just in a way that nothing is coming in or out, unless it's like food, it's been inspected, it's been controlled, certified, and the like. And everything basically needs to chill out. Everybody needs to chill out in their city for the next 3 or 4 months until we get an idea of how bad this actually is. And we're hearing that this thing will leapfrog, through standard 14-day quarantines. A certain percentage of the people that get this virus won't manifest symptoms for 21 days. Some people it'll be 2 or 3 days. It depends on your dose. And so you want to reduce your dose. You want to start practicing, kind of like social distancing. You want to be a germaphobe, like maximum style. And you're never going to get, a bulletin saying that this is in your town. Okay, you're never going to get a warning that somebody with Wuhan has just walked into the city. It's not going to be until 3 or 4 weeks later that they're going to start seeing the first cases come into the hospital. And so that's going to make things very difficult because by the time it shows up on the radar, it's too late. It's everywhere. You're done. And so we need to be proactive instead of reactive. We need to get ahead of this virus instead of try to catch up to this virus. And it's important that everybody communicate this idea one way or another out there. You can't imagine them talking about politics or an election right now, unfortunately, given what's about to hit. And I think that they need to, quit trying to get reelected and try and save this country because this is an unprecedented crisis. Everybody is in agreement. This is a bioweapon that's been released and it's in our country right now. The invasion has already begun. The first phase of this next war has already begun. And, nobody's going to want to, call this a declaration of war. They're going to want to call this an accident. But this was no accident, ladies and gentlemen, not at this scale. An accident would have been a mild epidemic of sorts, where we would have had, much more, much more, warning about what was happening from them before it was, too late. And they must have known pretty soon that this was their virus. And so we're getting reports that they knew that at the beginning of January. And it took them 2 weeks to basically organize the full lockdown. But we're also getting information that this was well prepared by the New World Order, if you will, years in advance. And so this is another 9/11, and if you remember 9/11, there was all this predictive programming. It was in the movies for years. They'd been planning that for years and years. And, they picked the date 9/11, like 911 emergency. So people would be like perpetually traumatized by the event. And every time you see a cop go by, and it says 911 on it, you're like, you'd have flashbacks to 9/11. So that's how these people work. It's, it's PSYOPs, it's Tavistock Institute and the like. So you have to operate as a citizen under the premise that this government is complicit with this outbreak and that they will never help you. And they're always going to be like, trying to catch up to the virus on purpose. And then they're going to say, well, we just have to exterminate everyone, just like the Georgia Guidestones. People should be, paying attention to the predictive programming. And now that we understand that predictive programming exists, we can start looking for things out there that might correspond to, a future event. And obviously, when you see the Georgia Guidestones, you see the Deagle.com report, they're obviously, trying to tell you something, ladies and gentlemen. But now this is the mainstream news. Did the coronavirus originate in Chinese government labs? Scientists believe killer disease may have begun at the facility. So this is a huge change in, you know, the stories, if you will. And now we've got, if you look at the first, you know, subheading here, Beijing sponsored South China University of Technology concludes that the killer virus probably originated from the lab. So you got Beijing sponsored state university, which means that they're trying to tell you now a little bit. They're like, well, yeah, in fact, yeah, I think it did escape the lab 3 months ago. You know, it probably escaped anywhere between mid-October, mid-November. And we're saying escaped like, you know, quote unquote escaped. But chances are this was a planned attack, and chances are this virus is already in a neighborhood near you. And that makes this basically the number one issue for the foreseeable future, because this is going to crash everybody's economy. It's going to, you know, you're not going to want to go to work. And when you see all the dead bodies, the people dropping dead from this, you know, bioweapon, it looks like, you know, one of the scenes of like when they gassed people, like the Kurds, you know, or whatever, when they gassed the Kurds. Speaking of the Kurds, remember that Kurdish genocide that happened, you know, last year? We just kind of, you know, let them get, you know, whacked by, you know, by the Turks. Well, you should pay attention to when people show you who they are. And anybody that would just be like, yeah, well, you know, we don't owe them nothing, and then just watch them and get exterminated. We saw some real horrible videos of that. And what makes you think you're going to get any better? And honestly, what makes you think you deserve better if you didn't, you know, try and say something for those poor people that were getting exterminated? Look at these body bags. Look at this crematorium. Look at, you know, these huge ovens. Look at what's going on. And now it's beyond, you know, just like mass death out there. They're just liquidating buildings one after the other as a preventative measure. That's being proactive now in the post-apocalyptic world. Do they, you know, might they be infected? Is there a slight possibility that those people might have been infected? Exterminate them all. That's the Chinese math right now. And before long, there'll be nobody left in Wuhan. You saw the videos for yourself, you know, that we've been playing here for weeks. And it's just getting worse and worse. You know, now it's like, you know, they're rounding people up, literally evacuating, liquidating, you know, entire buildings, locking people in. You know, you're seeing basically people being, you know, arrested en masse and quarantined. And on the left here, you see a quarantine operation, kind of like a staging area for a quarantine operation. And I think we got another real important video here on the left. Pay attention to the left. You're going to see a quarantine. You're going to see the liquidation of a building. And so they arrive with a couple of vans. You got the goon squad, you know, libtards basically dressed in the white spacesuits. They bring in the city buses. They go in and they tell everybody, your building's been infected, come with us. And you never see those people again. They've been doing this building after building and just, you know, quarantining, you know, entire, you know, areas. So we can expect, you know, a very similar timeline from this new world order in our local communities. At first, they're going to say, you know, we're going to restrict access around your town. And then they're going to come into a building and they're going to say one person's been infected. 2 or 3 days later or a week later, they're going to come back with the goon squad and say, you all got to come with us. And you have to think about, like, you know, imagine you live in an apartment building and you see the hazmat suit people arrive and take somebody away, and then you find out that they're a case. What are you going to be thinking while you're in that building? You're like, oh, I wonder if I'm going to get infected, right? You're thinking already that you've been exposed. And so when they come back 2 or 3 days later and say, you know, this building is contaminated, please come with us, you're going to be more than happy to come with them, right? You're going to be like, yeah, I saw you guys take them a couple days ago, and I've been worried about it since, and now, oh, I can finally get the medicine. Right? Here's the medicine. They throw you in a container with bars and they just watch you die. That's what's coming. And you can expect goon squads to show up everywhere to try to take people away. We're seeing, you know, mass arrests, force arrests, you know, even, you know, old people, they're coming in with, like, you know, all sorts of gear, right? They're not going to have any mercy. And we can expect literally the same thing here. given how they've just let this in, how they're not doing anything, you can expect that you're going to see this exact same syndrome in America. And so if you want to survive, you're going to have to, set up your choke points, set up your escape plan, set up your ambush, leave stuff everywhere, little go kits and the like, a little extra ammo, out there, over there, et cetera, et cetera. Get a radio scrambler, and, if they try to do something, turn on the scrambler, they can't call for help, right? It'll scramble radio, it'll scramble cell phones, and then just open fire. And they'll never know what happened. Get rid of the bodies. That's all you can say. And look, I mean, if it comes to that, we're not saying do that now, right? We're saying if you see, all of a sudden they're rounding people up, they never come back and all that stuff, it looks real bad, they're coming for you, defend yourselves out there. Because undoubtedly this is part of the Georgia Guidestones. And if we rise collectively as an immune response, they're not going to have enough goons for all of us. But if we just go willingly, oh yeah, please take me away, you're all going to fucking die. All right. So when they come for you like this, you're going to see similar shit just like this. I guarantee it. Right. And they're going to go building to building, door to door. If everybody takes out 2 or 3 bad guys, before long, there won't be any left. So you got to do your part out there. Take out the trash. We're not kidding. Stock up. Get an HQ, get a high point, get some surveillance, right? Make it difficult as you can for them for every extraction. I'm sure people have seen lockup and the like, and they try and do these forced extractions just for one guy, right? They got to do all this stuff just for one guy that's got nothing, right? Now if you're armed to the teeth, it's going to be a different story. And they're going to have to think of different plans. Maybe they'll just start droning everybody or release a more deadly virus. But in any case, people need to get on this topic before you end up in one of these chain gangs while they're leading you away to, the quarantine camps. And they're already starting. You have no choice in the matter. We wish we could deliver better news, but if you want to survive as Americans, if you want to survive as a country out there, you better start calling your city council, you better start calling your mayor's office, you better start calling your sheriff's office. Play him the clip, play him the Tom Cotton clips, the Senator Cotton clips. He knows what's going on. That guy is on the Intelligence Committee as well as the Armed Services Committee, and he's going everywhere saying, this virus it's came out of the fucking lab and it's out here to kill everybody. We should be doing something. Okay, so people need to pay attention to that. Everybody's saying that now. It's not just us. We said that day one, 3 weeks ago. And we're not here to say I told you so. But look, it's gonna destroy Sodom and Gomorrah. The question is, do you want it to destroy your town too? You need to do what it takes to survive out there. And it's not going to be pretty. What's coming is not going to be pretty. But they're expecting everybody just to go out like a bitch. Don't do it. Don't give it to them. Instead, give them some hot lead. Give them everything you got. Go buy a fucking minigun if you can afford it. Go set up some sentries with auto fucking detection. Like the movie Aliens, right? They come within 500 yards of your property, automatic. Boom, 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 boom. That's it. Let them send in the army to get you. Because otherwise, we're just going to go out too quickly. And it's, who knows what's going to happen after this. But we basically need to prepare out there. And you have to prepare for the last stand. It may not get there. Okay, so we're not saying, it's automatic, we're going to get to the last stand and everybody's going to die. But if we don't do anything, you can bet you're going to end up just like the Chinese. And at this stage, you can't afford to, prepare for anything less. Because if you think this is going to end well or this is just going to go away, it's not. This is just the beginning. This is like the first 5 minutes of the movie, This is like, any movie. I Am Legend, Resident Evil. It's a 2-hour movie. Well, we're just in the first 5 minutes of it right now. How did it happen? What was it like in the first days, right? So this is an epic, historical, unprecedented period in time of human history. And we need to start acting accordingly. Forget the video games, forget the football, forget the whatever, right? Get on this topic. Find out everything you can about it. We've left all sorts of information on our website, stfnreport.com, as well as our Twitter, Stranger Than Fiction News. And, all of the latest reports, all of the latest videos from the quarantine zone, the latest information that we can find, it'll be there for you. And who knows when everything's going to go black. You know how they were testing their kill switches, their internet kill switches, and how they've got all these deep underground military bases. There's no telling how deep this rabbit hole will go. It could be that they have to basically, wipe out humanity and start over to survive. And, if they've got all of the gear and we're just sitting on the surface, trying to, running out of food, running out of supplies, they're just going to flip the switch, reset. So, we could avoid all that right now by protecting the towns, the villages, everything outside of the big cities, because they're going to get wiped out. Sodom and Gomorrah is going to get wiped out. And look, there's a lot of competing theories as far as who actually pushed the button here, how did it get out of the lab, what's going on, who did what. It's kind of besides the point at this stage. What's important to understand here is why this happened. And it happened because, the Chinese with their big mouth, they're like, oh, we're going to rewrite the Bible and make it more communist, right? Boom, they got hit with the plague. And then Sodom and Gomorrah, out there in California, they're trying to ban the Bible, right? They're trying to transition children. Boom, they're going to get hit with the plague. Don't go out like that. Don't go out like them. And remember that none of this would be happening unless it was, authorized. And so, Sodom and Gomorrah is going to get theirs. The question is, how well do you know your Bible? How well do you know your 10 Commandments? Do you want to go out like them? Protect yourselves, protect your community, and, start putting the scarlet letter on anybody that's, committing adultery or, basically, blaspheming and the like. Start getting, a little more Puritan out there. Start becoming a germaphobe. Prepare to survive, because there's no telling, what's coming next. It's only going to get worse out there, to say the least. Feel free to mirror all of this content, these videos and the like. Start a page. But, we want people to start being ambassadors in their communities. Start finding real people, because the internet isn't going to matter in a short amount of time, for the most part. It's not going to help you survive for the most part. You need a network on the ground. Start recruiting people in your town that you can trust. Have a buddy system, have a wingman, and the like, that you can count on and that you can coordinate with when the goon squads come along. Because, the more people that you get involved in the choke points and the ambushes, the better. But everybody's got to be like, germaphobes too, because you're only as strong as your weakest link out there. Get all the supplies, get all your medicines, get everything that you're going to need for the next, 2 or 3 months at least. The more the better. You'll never be, prepared enough for this catastrophe that's about to strike. So, look, that's a given. But the more you have, the better you're prepared, the better off you'll be. Most of the sheeple won't even see this coming, and that's the plan. They're going to get it first. And so, but that buys you time. You can see what's going to be happening to the sheeple, and then you can really make your decision as far as, do we set up the choke point? Do we set up the ambush? Do we, red dawn and interdict with these guys? Go find your vets. Go find your buddies out there that served in Iraq and the like. Get them on board and start organizing. Go get some jammers and the like. Medicines that you can get, stock up on, do it. We recommend, get lots of hydrogen peroxide, get lots of baking soda, at least enough, for the duration of your quarantine. And it may be helpful. But remember, whatever you might try, minute doses, microdose. The baking soda, would probably be recommended like 1/8 of a teaspoon, not tablespoon, but teaspoon, if you feel like you might be getting a sore throat or something like that, and just do that for a couple days. Maybe gargle with hydrogen peroxide once a day after you go out and get your groceries or do your stock up kind of gear. Get away from people that are sneezing and coughing. Don't stand and get exposed. 15 seconds is enough to contaminate you. And, this stuff is made to spread. It's made to circumvent containment. So masks aren't going to work as efficiently as you would like. They're not 100%, especially the P95, P99 masks. Or N95, N99. They're not 100%. Okay. These virons of the Wuhan supervirus are, you know, super small. They go through the mass. That's why all of the medical people are getting infected. And so don't think that just because you got a mask on or even a spacesuit that that it's a bulletproof vest, because that is not the case. And we've been talking about, you know, all sorts of characteristics of this virus in previous broadcasts. We're not necessarily going to go there right now, but it's important that people understand that, you know, the best practice is self-isolation. Don't touch your nose, your mouth, your eyes. You're going to want to look at getting kind of like a visor set up. Pay attention to, you know, what the Chinese are doing to trying to survive. This thing, you know, will spread, you know, through the air, land in your eye, and start infecting you like pink eye, and then all of a sudden, boom, it's the full disease. So this is a very nasty thing. It's also equated or related to the drop dead syndrome. People are just dropping dead due to cytokine storms and the like, and you can research that and understand, you know, the nature of this virus, but it'll kill you quicker than you can think. And it's better to kind of like mitigate the worst case scenarios, you know, basically like managing the disease if you get exposed to it. And chances are everybody will be exposed to it. So you want to manage your fatigue. You want to quit, you know, being up till 3 a.m. You want to quit the Red Bull. You want to quit all that stuff. You want to get a good night's sleep. You know, put the phone away, put the computer away. See, it's happening in California right now. San Diego's already declared a state of emergency. Pay attention, it's starting. But the, you know, you want to get a good night's sleep. And of course, Wi-Fi, EMF, cell phones, and cell towers weaken your immune system. For decades, they've known that, you know, static and modulated electric fields damage white blood cells, damage the immune system, and it makes you more susceptible to even the flu, let alone a weaponized supervirus. So, you know, our recommendation is to start, you know, building up your immune system right now. You know, ditch your phone. Go get a dumb phone, keep the battery out of it. You don't want to be on the grid. As long as, you know, you got a phone that you can't take the battery out of, you're probably getting dosed. And chances are, you know, a lot of the routers are, you know, are now operating with some kind of, you know, stealth program to, you know, make that even worse. So we would recommend kind of putting a little Faraday cage around your routers if you use one. Turn off the Wi-Fi, use Ethernet cables. It's kind of ghetto, but look, I mean, everything will help at this stage. And if you want to be a survivor, ditch the Wi-Fi. You want to be a survivor, use your cell phone as a two-way radio in cases of emergencies. Don't just sit there and just talk all day. Go get supplies, go get ammo, go get some booze. You're going to need it. And start setting up an HQ, start setting up, you know, everything you need to survive and to defend yourselves and to protect your community. And if you can, you know, if you've got a network, if you're, you know, a cool person out there, you got a network of buddies already, you know, you're the militia, you're the resistance. Get ready for this, that, and the other. Start doing some football plays. Okay, you know, this is a good choke point. This is a good bait and switch. This is a good, you know, draw them over here, and then everybody's on the rooftop, right? And so start thinking about it like the movie Terminator and the like. Luckily, these aren't, you know, Terminators, but undoubtedly they got some AI, you know, forecasting working in the background. So the last thing they want is people basically on guard, shields up, you know, aiming, you know, guns out the window, waiting for, you know, the goon squad to arrive. And of course, you know, you're going to want to get gear, medical gear that looks like them so that you can blend in if you have to escape. You know, go check out, you know, things like Catch Me If You Can, right? That gives you some ideas. But blend in. Everything that you've gone through in your life up till now has prepared you for this moment. You're not unprepared out there. Don't fear out there. Be prepared. You live in a physical world, right? You're meant to do things in the physical world. Of course, you want to be a good Christian. You want to know your 10 commandments. You want to say your prayers. Absolutely, say your prayers, but be prepared out there. It's kind of like, you know, back in the day when people actually had to, like, you know, harvest the field for food. You know, if you didn't harvest and if you didn't stock up for winter, you weren't going to make it. And if you were dumb enough to go through a winter without a stockpile, you pretty much got what you deserved. And don't expect that, you know, you can just jump off a building and say your prayers and anything's going to happen more than what you would expect, because you know the how this world works. And, that's well described in the Bible, ladies and gentlemen. So you need to do what's right and understand what's best, and only a thorough understanding of the Bible will help you prepare for what's coming. But as we can see right now, it's a catastrophe that never ends out there. It just keeps getting worse and worse, more and more like Mad Max. It's turning into Mad Max right now, ladies and gentlemen. People need to prepare. People need to be on point and do what they can to survive. And we'll just leave it there for this broadcast. We'll try and be back for another show later on today, but stay tuned for that one. We'll leave it there. Check out our website, stfnreport.com. If you're joining us late, replay on demand. Feel free to like and share, mirror this content. Much love out there. Good luck out there. Don't wait for the television to start announcing cases. This thing has got such a huge lag time of 3 weeks between 3-4 weeks between infection and death, that by the time the first deaths have happened, this thing has been able to cycle 5 to 10 times, which means the numbers can be astronomical. So don't wait for them to say, oh yeah, all of a sudden we got 10 cases, we got 20 cases, we got 30 cases, we got 40 cases. By the time it hits 40, it's a full-blown meltdown. And there's other countries that are melting down, so don't think it's just going to be in China. Japan's melting down, Singapore's melting down, South Korea's melting down, Vietnam's melting down, Thailand's melting down, Southeast Asia is melting down right now. And there's probably a shitload of cases, pardon the language, in America right now, in North America right now. And we're probably just a couple cycles away before it's, it's uh-oh. So, at least you've got a couple weeks, maybe a couple days at this point to really stock up and prepare. It's probably kind of like too late to do a full transition, but maybe you can, fully transition, go get a new place out in the country. If you start now and you can close the deal in a couple days or maybe in a week, maybe you can do it. But rentals are usually pretty shitty out there. And but if you're living in the city, you might want to consider it, because I'll tell you what, the cities are going to get it worse, and they're going to become giant concentration camps. No escape, ladies and gentlemen. We'll leave it there. Much love to everybody out there, sincerely. Until the next time, if you're listening to this, you are the resistance.